So I want to thank everybody for being here. And as I wrote in the invitation and stuff, or I'll say it this way now anyway, is that about 2.5 years ago, I had throat cancer. And I wound up with a phenomenal doctor, a whole great hospital, but a phenomenal doctor down in larger city below us called Chiang Mai here in Thailand. And so, like this coughing I just did now, I had throat cancer and I had the tumor removed, and my throat still hasn't gotten back to the way it used to be, but it's happening little by little. So hopefully I won't be coughing too much. And in fact, sometimes when I'm out in a restaurant, I have to tell people I'm coughing, but I'm recovering. I don't have a cold. So, the impetus for creating Seishindo came from my disappointment and actually disillusionment with how I perceive psychology and therapy developing in the 1970s. And yes, the 1970s, I'm 76 years old. And during this time period, it seemed that, well, pretty much every professional in the field of psychology and therapy, there was no coaching at that point. Every professional pretty much was focusing on what was wrong with people rather than exploring the magnificence people generate when they're fully supported and appreciated. And then, along with the theories of Sigmund Freud becoming well known and well accepted in the 1930s and 1940s, therapy and psychology really was a field where people felt it was imperative to understand exactly all the possible maladies that people could have. And there was this manual, I guess you would call it, and it was called the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders. And in fact, if you were a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and anyway, if you had a relationship with a health insurance company, when you saw a client, you actually had to put down the numbers of what was wrong with them, manic, depressive, whatever. But there was nothing in that form that said, and John's got a great sense of humor, and he seems like he's got a lot on the ball. It was just what was wrong with people. So I was very much not liking that. And also around that time, NLP was starting up, and that also gave us a different lens or a different model to work with. So Seishindo began with what I'm calling 10 key points in mind, but I'm only going to do 4 today to not get into too much in our head. So key point number 1 is we're here to help people reach ever closer to their full potential, a task that we know will never be fully accomplished. And the part about the task that will never be fully accomplished, that's very much a Japanese idea, like in Aikido, Cha-Do, all of the do's, Karate Do, is that you study, and the longer you study, and the deeper you go into studying, the more you realize there's so much more to learn. And that's what keeps you interested. So there's nothing negative about that in my way of thinking. So that's point number 1. We help people reach ever closer to their full potential. Point number 2 is every human being is highly capable of living an emotionally fulfilling, quote unquote, successful life, even though they might need some help in defining or redefining what success means. Of course, what you'll notice when a lot of people come to you, if you're a coach or a therapist, or pretty much everyone that comes to you, they don't believe that they're capable of living an emotionally fulfilling, successful life. So one of the tasks we have is starting out what we call pacing the client, meaning going along with them, until eventually we can slowly lead them in somewhat of a new direction. And if we start off by saying, oh, excuse me, but that's incorrect, I think you won't have many clients after just a short amount of time. So that's point number two. Um, Everybody is capable of living a successful life. Point number three is we have the potential to enjoy life fully and successfully navigates its ups and downs. And in Seishindo, we like to say that each person is perfectly imperfect just as they are. Perfectly imperfect, which means we're not meant to all look like Brad Pitt, although I wouldn't mind looking like Brad Pitt, and maybe most of the men here wouldn't mind looking like Brad Pitt, but we're perfect with maybe a mole over here on our face, or maybe my nose is a little crooked, or maybe my lips are a little thin, or who I really am is Charlie. I'm not someone else, and I'm not attempting to be someone else, and I'm perfectly imperfect, just like everyone else on the planet. And the fourth point, and the last point for today, is each person is born highly intelligent with a psyche that functions perfectly. We each have a natural capacity to be healthy, to survive and thrive, and we are all, every single one of us, excellent learners. So, again, as I'm saying, what happens is our clients, for the most part, usually don't, and we have 10 points, but we're just doing 4 for today. And our clients normally don't believe a number of things, a number of these points. They believe there's something wrong with them. They believe they're lazy. They believe they're stupid or whatever, because they learned that mainly from their parents or whoever was taking care of them, the caretakers, as they were growing up. So our job is to, in general, regardless of the challenge that the client comes to us with, our job is to help them to have a different way of thinking about themselves, greater appreciation for themselves, greater confidence in themselves. And often, in fact, the challenge that they bring and just the general task of raising up their own self-appraisal, we have these two tracks going at the same time. So that's what I think is important, is that helping the client in general to improve their model of the world and their beliefs in themselves. And when we can do that, which I think mostly we usually can, we add a lot to the client's life. So I say, some of the things, people wind up coming away from working with us feeling a bit happier, a greater sense of being present in the here and now, an increase in self-appreciation and self-confidence, better, more copacetic relationships with others, better sleep, and various other benefits they get as well. So that's what we're here to do, is help people to live a more fulfilling life. So can anybody tell me what their expectations for today are, or what they're hoping for, or what they'd like to hear and see?
I got some ideas, Charlie, if I may.
You go ahead.
I like to steal the secrets of all wise people So I think you're one of those wise people. So I love the elegance of your work, the originality of your work. And so I'm coming here to just learn something new. I really appreciate the videos you have on your website, and even just where you are in your life right now and the gifts you're sharing. So I'm just really here to absorb and learn and maybe carry on some of the Seishindo gifts in my own work and my own impact in the world. So thank you.
Okay. And in your own work, are you spending some fairly significant part of your work being a coach, or what are you doing?
I'm a super quantum coach. So I work professionally as a career leadership coach for a big biotech company. I coach for my local, pretty well-known business school, team coaching. I coach for two other organizations, one with a social justice nonprofit. And then the last coaching is I do some pro bono coaching and private clients. So I'm basically coach obsessed
Okay. And what
with
country?
sustainability
What
in the
country?
US, US,
Where, if you don't mind?
United States.
Yeah, but where in the United States, if you don't mind?
Oh, Berkeley. I work in South San Francisco.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool.
And the company I work for is Roche Genentech. So they're a pretty big global biotech company.
Okay. Fantastic. Anyone else like to say like what they're hoping for or expecting, Jonathan?
Thank you. I'll keep mine brief. And first of all, I'll say that Tivo's answer was fabulous, and I'm pretty aligned with that. Um, I do quite a bit of coaching and leadership coaching for a manufacturing company here in Ohio, and also have private clients that I work with. And I will say that I have a limited exposure to what you do, having watched you work when we did the Master Prac in 2011, and was just blown away by your presence and your way of being. And I think that that is part of what you do. Um, I think it's part of what you teach, and you demonstrate it. And it's always lovely to see congruent teachers in any domain. And when I watched you do all that somatic work, I was just struck with the parallels with everything we do with NLP and with Ericksonian hypnotherapy, and combining that with bits and pieces we've picked up along the years from some of the somatic geniuses, Feldenkrais and whatnot. I think that there's something beautiful in the work that you do, and I just want more of it.
Okay.
So,
Again, thank you very much. And my understanding, and I like to say always like my understanding or something like that, which is different than the truth, you know, is that all of our emotions, and I'm doing this, I'm moving like this because emotions move us. All of my, all of our emotions begin in the body and filter up into the brain. So there was a medical researcher, oh, I'm going to say 20 years ago now, it could be longer, Dr. Gershon, that wound up figuring out that all of the serotonin was manufactured in the gut or in the enteric nervous system. And as far as I know, and I don't follow this on a daily basis, but all of the antidepressant medications are something, some long phrase of like serotonin reuptake inhibitors or something. So it's all of the antidepressant medications have to do with keeping serotonin in the system longer. And this is all orchestrated by your enteric nervous system. It's not at all, not at all, not at all orchestrated by the brain in your head. And in fact, when Gershon first came out with these theories after a lot of scientific research, he apparently came very close to losing his certification as a doctor because people said that this is just absolute nonsense. What is it? What is this guy smoking or something, you know? So our body understands everything immediately. And then we go, oh, isn't that interesting? And and after we go, isn't that interesting? We are having internal dialogue, which is often fine, often not fine, but often fine. And we're becoming logical about what we just felt, or, yeah, felt, I would say. So I would call it the hallmark of my work for a long time now is to help people change the way they use their body and also become more aware of, number one, what they're doing with their body, and also just what's going on in their body. And the more you're aware of what's going on in your body, the greater opportunity you have to change your emotional experience. So when I used to teach with John Grinder and Judy Delogia a long time ago, John was very fond of saying that Aikido is the nonverbal explication of NLP. And I'd like to think I'm fairly highly developed as an Aikido person, Aikido teacher. I was a teacher in Japan for more than 20 years. So, and thank you, Jonathan, for saying what you said. So we heard from Jonathan and TiVo. That can be fine. Or we can move on if there's somebody else that would like this, say what they're wanting or hoping for, or maybe they're already disappointed. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to jump in for 2 seconds, just saying that you were my inspiration for getting involved in this arena of embodied, what we can call embodied, what they call these days embodied cognition. And now moving more into studying somatic movement because of the original inspiration I got from you to incorporate that into the work I do in NLP and hypnosis.
This is Kate. Hi, guys. I'm just kind of popping in here. I'm kind of new to learning Shisando, and just, Joel invited me and I just thought I would pop in. I'm a executive coach and entrepreneur. I also help entrepreneurs. For me, I have been dealing with autoimmune disorder, and the work that I do is I try to integrate different tools to help my clients go through change. So it helps their nervous system using like visual communications, and there's some other tools that I'm creating as well. Anyways, that's just a little bit about me, but I'm here because I'm curious and just to support Joel as well. And I'm currently in my hot yoga studio right now, guys. We just had I live in Florida, so it's just been very emotionally, physically draining on my body. So kind of cool timing, but so that's just what's so for me right now. And thanks for inviting me, Joel.
Okay. Thanks for speaking up, Kate. So 2.5 years ago, I was talking to a client during a session, and this gentleman had been my client for more than 5 years, every week. And by the way, when I talk about people, I usually say Fred for men, and I usually say like Sally or something for a woman, but their names, I just do that to keep anonymity. So Fred said to me, Charlie, I don't want to come across as weird all of a sudden, but it seems to me that the right side of your throat's been a little swollen in the last couple of weeks. And I, literally stared into the screen like that because I could see myself, and I started poking around. I had no sense of anything being wrong. There was no soreness. There was no tenderness. But I said, okay, thank you for that. And I'm not going to be stupid, so I'll go off tomorrow to the hospital. So I did go off the next day to the hospital, had a CT scan, and whenever, I'm sure you've seen this on TV a number of times, if you haven't had it in your own life, when you come back in and the results are not going to be something that you're happy with, it's so immediately obvious from the way the doctor is just, I don't know, standing there and the look on his face. And he said, well, you won't be happy to hear this news. You've got throat cancer. And he was kind of going around trying to say something to make me feel good. And I said to him, Doc, please be 100% honest with me and tell me what's going on, because I can do something with bad news, but if you just say nice, I don't have any idea what to do. And the doctor wound up saying, okay, you want the straight news. You've got stage 4 cancer. And what that means is you're not meant to make it through this treatment process. You're meant to die before the process is over. And I took a deep breath, and I can't tell you what was going on. I mean, on some level, my head had already exploded. And I went like this, particularly because I'm in Thailand, and I said, thank you very much for this information. I'm not happy with what you told me, but I'm very happy that you told me what you told me. So you're not meant to make it through the treatment process. So I wound up going down, as I was told, to the cancer specialty hospital in northern Thailand, in Chiang Mai. And I was very lucky. Luck of the draw, I got the #1 doctor in the hospital, just because he was seeing like the 3rd person that day or something, and that was me. And these guys, I want to say this because I think it's special for everyone. Of course, it's part of my personal journey. But my doctor and other doctors in that hospital also, they give you about 15 minutes per visit. And my doctor is very present when you spend that 15 minutes with him. And sometimes he's smiling, tells a little bit of a joke, something like that. And then absolutely the moment he says, that's it for today, and I go, thank you very much, he's down onto his computer doing something at his desk. He's already on to the next patient. So he sees about 25 people a day, 5 days a week. Let's just call it 100. Five people a day, 25 people a week. How badly did I just mess that up? 24 people a day, 100 people a week, 400 people a month. And just think about this, or at least I have. My guess is that at least 50% of his patients wind up dying, because that's what the mortality rates are with cancer. So out of 400 people, 200 people died this month, 200 people died next month, 200 again. And there he is, just going on and on and on and on. Very nice. Like I say, he's got a smile, he's present. And I say he's one of God's gifts to everybody on the planet here. So that I went back, I've been back a few times, of course. So 2.5 years ago was when my journey started. And when I went back around 2 months ago, he said, well, I don't have great news for you, but it's not so bad either. You have a remnant of a blood clot from the operation is in your brain. And he said, I'll tell you, because I always tell you the truth, because you always want it, that could lead to a heart attack or other things, but it's a small remnant, and where it is in your brain, I don't think that's going to happen. And then I started complaining. I said, cancer is a gift that keeps on giving. And he actually, and this is particularly interesting for a Thai person, he shook his finger at me and said, please stop complaining. He said, 2.5 years ago, you weren't meant to live. And here you are today. And I don't know what you did to help your treatment along, but you obviously, to me, as a lead doctor, you obviously did something. You are a special human being. Please continue to notice that about yourself and don't dare allow yourself to get into complaining. And I felt so good hearing him say what he said, because I don't know, I was too close to it all. I don't know what you did, but you did something special. You're a special person. Please make sure you don't get into complaining. And I think too, of course, most of the clients we see are not a life or death situation, but just as the doctor was helping me to feel better about myself, that's one of the things we're looking to do with almost all of our patients, because we have grown up from our parents, from our school system and stuff, having a negative outlook, at least partially, on who we are as a human being. Well, if I wasn't so lazy, or this or that, or someone else is saying that, and we start believing it. And that leads to all sorts of madness. So Kate, I don't know, I got drawn into wanting to say that based on what you said, and here we are to wind up having a more positive outlook on ourselves and also the planet that we're living on. So what happens, like when the doctor said to me, don't start complaining, because it's not good for you and it's not good for anyone. When we start to complain or have a loss of confidence, invariably we sort of like wind ourselves up. It's like the ever ready bunny, and then put it down on the table and it starts running around. And we lose our awareness of ourselves. So I always think, or most always think, that one of our main tasks with clients is not allowing them the opportunity to really get wound up and go blah, 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 unthinking, but stuff that they've said in one form or another many, many times over the course of their life. So I want to show you today, particularly since this is a first class in this series, hopefully there'll be a number more. I want to show you a very simple technique that pretty much anybody can do. So if there's one brave person in the group that would like to just talk about a challenge that they have, you'll be treated with full respect and appreciation and such, and you don't have to mention what we would call private details. So you could be talking about your wife, you could be talking about your son, you could be talking about your boss, whatever. Who would like to talk to me about a challenge that they're facing and they wish they could do better with? And then
I volunteer if nobody else wants to, or if nobody's else. Okay, you have
that's
Beverly
good
too.
Okay, Brother Joe, please put up the document. Ta-da! We hope that's happening. Okay, can you see that well, Tivo?
Yes, beautifully.
Okay. Does anybody beyond me know what this document basically is called? It's called the Stroop Test, S-T-R-O-O-P, the Stroop Test. So if you notice, the actual color of each box, like top and to the left, is black, but underneath it says gray. The middle box is actually red, and it says red. Oh, the right-hand box is green, and it also says red. Okay, so if I ask TiVo, which I'm not doing at the moment, if I ask TiVo to name, to speak the word that it says underneath each box, he'll have a little bit of confusion because this box here, the one with the green, it says red. And he might, I'm a professional, I don't get up, confused or whatever. No, it's a confusion technique, and it stops people from really getting ahead of steam when they're talking about a challenge. Does that make sense to everyone? Or if there is someone that it doesn't make sense to, please let me know. Okay, TiVo, just to check, count backwards from 10 to 1, and I'm going to listen to this. Did you hear that, TiVo?
Yep.
Okay, count backwards from 10 to 1 and see if you can hear this click well enough as you're talking. Go ahead.
Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Could you hear it easy enough, or should I use something louder?
I could hear it.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do, please. I want you to start talking about a challenge. And I want you to begin by saying your name. Hi, I'm Charlie Badenhop, that kind of thing, okay?
Yep.
And when you hear the click, stop whatever it is you're saying. So let's say I'm going to do myself. Hello, I am Ray, Charlie Badenhop, and I'm living in Red, Thailand. You understand?
Yep.
Okay? So very important that you stop. And what I want you to do starting off is say the word underneath each box, going left to right, down, left to right, down. Okay?
Okay. And it's in this statement of I am Gray, I am.
Well,
That's the
starting
same.
out, I want you to say I am. Normally
Yeah.
you say TiVo.
Okay. Good. See, you're already confusing me. This is good. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Ready to go.
Go ahead.
Okay. My name is TiVo. I am Gray.
No, you don't need to say I am, just Gray.
Okay. Gray. Red. Red.
Just say the Gray and then go on talking as you normally.
Got it.
No, well,
Okay.
we're learning it as we do it.
I'm trainable. Yes. So my name is TiVo, and I have this challenge with Gray.
Good.
My name is TiVo, and I have this challenge with my daughter, and be Red. My name is TiVo.
You don't need to start off from the beginning each time.
Got it. I have this challenge on being reflexively responsive to what's red, to being reflexively responsive, pink, to a situation that's dynamically volatile as it relates turquoise, to mental health, stability, and olive. Yeah, so the challenge is, how do I be reflexive with something that's dynamic? Because white, just really accepting it.
Okay, good. Let's stop there for now. So, when you normally talk about this challenge you're having with your daughter, with someone or other, I'm sure you do, how do you feel compared to now?
I feel relaxed, present.
I feel relaxed.
I feel relaxed. I feel present. I feel really spacious than where I started. it just stopped me cold, and I was able to restart the narrative or the context.
Okay, good. So let me just again clear up a word or two. I stop myself cold.
I stopped myself cold. I like that better.
Yeah, well, because I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm using the clicker. I don't have a gun that I'm pointing at your head, right?
Yeah. I'm surprising myself how powerful this visual is. It just really is surprising the shit out of me.
Okay. And why do you think it surprises the shit out of you?
Because I like complicated processes. This is too simple.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to comment what they've noticed so far, please? No. Okay. So what I was guessing, and this,
Charlie,
yes, go ahead.
I think it's a mirror of the work that you do when someone is on the bouncing balls.
Okay.
I think what you're doing is you're asking him to induce the early triggers of the problem state. I don't see him going into deep problematic responses. So at some level, he's dissociated from the issue already, enough to be able to calmly talk about it with us. But as he goes into it, you can tell based on the tonal shifts that he uses that he's accessing something that's a challenge. It, if I had to guess, I would assume that this is actually still presently a challenge as opposed to something that has been quietly solved over the last month or two. You can usually tell a difference. Um, and and when you click the clicker, you are interrupting his neurology and his ability to access the state. I mean, and what's happening is when you click and he goes to the word, if it were a word that were congruent with the color, everything would align to let him use that as a very brief interrupt to his ability to access the state. And he would probably be able to continue to launch into the problem state if there weren't an incongruence that he had to process real time as he was accessing each of the entries. So you're really screwing up his ability to get angry or upset about this,
Yeah.
in effect.
Okay. There's a lot what you just said. And of course, you have a lot of experience in the field. This, I'm, what I believe every change worker will notice is that when they start with a client, the client is somehow incongruent. Like they're smiling even though they're talking about something terrible that happened and so forth and so on. This process is fostering incongruency because of the color and the word is not the same. So the client is a little bit forced into a little bit of incongruency. What I would say a little differently, and maybe we're both right or maybe we're both wrong, is I don't believe it disassociates him from the quote unquote challenge or problem. I feel like it eventually associates himself more with the challenge. And
I
Rob
like it.
raised his hand. Rob, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my mic was on. I was noticing the same thing, and Jonathan, I had a similar impression. I'm not sure so much it's disassociated. I would say it almost invites TiVo to experience the problem from a different state. You know, perhaps a bit of a confused state, a curious state, a fun state. I don't know what state he went into. And what I'm curious about, to take Jonathan's comment a little further, I'm curious how many times you have to interrupt his going into that state to where that can become a new choice. Like, oh, I don't need to walk down that old path again or slip into that, thing. So,
Well,
is it one time through the sheet? Is it three times?
yeah,
Is it once a week?
I think
So
how many times and such. That's an aesthetic question or an aesthetic choice. And also depending on just how much of a change a person really wants to make. And one of the things that's really important, I think, when I'm coaching, and you guys most likely basically agree with me, is I'm not looking to get the client to the place where they go, "Oh, Charlie, thank you very much. This is so completely not happening anymore. Um, and I think I'll just start doing something else starting tomorrow." If you create enough of a change, they'll start noodling over that change later today, tomorrow, and stuff. And then that change hopefully will continue to enlarge. And Rob, as you know, and Jonathan, we all know that do this work. Like sometimes I have people contact me and they go, "I heard you're, rather talented. I'd like to book 2 sessions with you to take care of this problem I'm having with my wife," let's say. And I go, "Yeah, I do. I do. Thank you for the fact that I have a good reputation out there in the world. But my minimum initial booking is 12 sessions. And if you're dissatisfied with the work in any way, I'll give you the money back that we haven't used up. But 2 sessions is most likely not going to get you the results that you want. That's why I don't allow people to do 2 sessions. Particularly when they say, "Oh, but Coach X, he says he could do this in 1 session." And I would say, you know what? I think it's better you go to Coach X, and hopefully you'll be really satisfied after 1 session. If you're not, give me a call and book 12 sessions. So I think how many times you go through the page, it's an aesthetic decision. How much black paint is enough black paint on this particular painting? Okay? Anyone else for now? Okay, Tivo, let's change the task a tiny bit if you don't mind.
Perfect.
This time, I'm going to ask you to start anywhere you want in this situation, talking about your relationship with your daughter. But this time, I want you to, when I click, I want you to say the actual color of each square. So like I want you to start at the top left again, and I go click, and you go black. Boom, 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 click, red, right? Okay, understood?
Yep.
And again, no need to start over and each time. And it doesn't, you don't have to take the word red or green or whatever and turn it into a seeming part of the sentence. I just want you to interrupt yourself and say this time the actual color. Okay?
Got it. Gray, red.
Okay, one at a time.
Okay.
And I said this time say the actual color.
Oh, yes. Black.
Good. Go ahead.
I'm enjoying the hypnotic induction from the colors because my whole orientation towards my
Are you hearing this?
red.
Go ahead.
I'm enjoying it, feels hypnotic, so I'm really relaxed. And green, every time it relaxes me more, so I have a different holding of what I'm observing with my daughter. It's really no longer yellow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get one of these sheets for me to use at home with any challenge I'm having, because it's kind of a fun reorientation towards reality. Purple. I'm not very good at my colors. I hope that's purple.
It's a hard to say that color. I'm not sure myself. Purple is good.
Okay. Yeah, part of the orientation will be to have more of an open, relaxed state and see what's possible and not problematize it.
Okay, stop there for a second. Stop there for a second. This is great. You're now starting to go into solution stage. without me even suggesting that. Did you? Jonathan shook his head up and down a little bit. Yes, Rob did. Did anyone notice he started talking about how he could change? You see? Okay.
He was sorting for what's good,
Okay.
Yeah.
as opposed to what's troublesome.
Okay. Good. Go ahead, Tivo.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the opportunities that now have opened up for me, and really many white, mint, light green, or
Okay.
whatever that color is. I'm color challenged, but you know what? I like being color challenged. Aqua.
Better than I would have thought to say. Go ahead.
Enjoying how easily I get hypnotized by the clicker and the color. Orange. I'm going to start adding clicks and colors to my repertoire of how I evoke change for myself and shift the filter at ease and kind of playfully. This feels very playful. Pink. And it feels very, for some reason, Charlie-esque in some playful, wise way that I'm enjoying. Blue. Yeah. Gray. I'm fucking limitless. I'm gonna have a good time on all my problems. It's like,
Okay. Good. Let's pause again. Here you are. When's the last time you or one of your clients started talking about a challenge and quickly winds up talking about how great they're feeling at the moment?
it can be a lot faster, a lot sooner. Doesn't have to be,
Yeah. Could be.
Could be, yeah, could be.
So, you see, the thing is, and particularly with our children, I have a daughter. She's be 30 years old in about a month. I get along really well with her. She lives in California now. She grew up in Japan, Tokyo. Now she lives in California, LA for the last about 3 years. And she says, Dad, all of LA is Disneyland. You know, the way people in California do things completely differently than Japanese people. So that I've done this with my daughter. Like, my daughter knows I'm a bit quote unquote unusual. And she will often say to me, Dad, if you don't mind, I forget what I started with today. What was it that I was saying to you that we're doing this in the first place? She can't even remember what the problem is.
Yeah.
So that gives people an opportunity to face that challenge in a very new way. And that's what we're hoping to do. I'm not hoping, oh, gee, I hope with Jonathan today, I hope I can fix this problem he has, or I hope I can fix Jonathan, or I hope, no. I would just love somehow to get Jonathan thinking about this challenge he's facing in a new and different way. That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
Okay, now, I've got another couple of these that I sometimes use, and maybe I'll use another one or two at a different time. One is, and it's got symbols on the page, right hand up, left hand up, both hands up. Jonathan's seen that one before. With me, Jonathan, or with someone else?
I was exposed to that ages ago, I think, and it might have been on a video from Ed and Marianne Reese.
Okay.
Who knows? The exercise goes back many, many years. It could have been originated from you. I don't know.
No. Well, actually, where I got it from is a very, very interesting, I don't know what the proper term is, I'd say eye doctor that works out of Oregon somewhere. And so people would be talking, and just like there's red and gray and red and red, they have to do when he makes a click or something, they have to do with their hands what it says. Both hands up, left hand, right hand. And he uses it, listen to this, because I think it's brilliant, which is how I got into it. He uses it to improve people's eyesight. Yeah, Rob.
So a couple of things I wanted to mention. One is I know you can be quite humble, and I actually think you're underselling this, quite frankly. And I'd be curious to hear from some of the other coaches on this call. Like you're saying, well, we're not seeking to do this with it, but this is a very powerful and well-crafted coaching tool. And my hat's off to you. So I wouldn't undersell it. But the other thing I wanted to point out is with the alphabet chart, right? And for those who don't know, John Grinder uses a version of that. But I think what's very unique in what you're doing here, and I've seen you do this with some of your other techniques, is you're integrating the person talking about their issue and their embodied expression of their problem, and you're integrating that with the game, right? Or this game to bring you into a different state. That's quite different from the way John uses it, actually.
Yeah.
The way John uses it is you sort of picture the problem, then you go play a game, and then when you're in a good mood from the game, you think about the problem again. What you're doing is you're weaving them together in a way that's very, I think, very, very powerful. So
Okay,
that's
thank
my
you,
thought.
first of all. And John, I was in the same room with John and this Oregonian eye doctor, and that's where John got the raising the hands thing from.
Fair enough.
And I won't say more than that, but yeah, that's where John got the thing from. So yes, Rob, I think the idea in my mind anyway, and this one, the Stroop effect or the Stroop test, I can't even remember, but I think I made this up on my own a long time ago. Not the actual Stroop test, but this way of using it. And the idea is people get to the place where they can't separate out their initial challenge, which seems a lot less challenging at the moment, and the fact that they're using this Stroop test. You understand? So they're not saying like, oh, I feel better about my challenge because I'm using this cute little Stroop test thing. They feel better about their challenge. And okay, big deal, I'm using this Stroop test thing. So that's it. It performs a secondary function of helping people to realize they could be a lot more solution oriented if they just did stuff differently. No great this or that, or the fact that Charlie blah blah blah, or John Grinder or blah blah blah, whatever. If I approach my challenges differently, I can most likely get a lot better results, and I'd be going right on, brother. Okay, how are we doing? Did we lose those few people? I think no. We got
Charlie, can I say something really quick?
You can say it even if it's not really quick.
I'm surprised how quickly my whole orientation changed, right? Because it's not that I think sometimes states kind of help, but this was like the whole thing got flipped. So I think it was more systemic than just a state shift. It was really kind of a orientation shift along with state embedded in it.
Yeah. So I would just give you one thing to pay attention to when you leave today, TiVo, is, and of course I'm offering a positively oriented piece of information. I'm not looking to find fault. You tend to, what I believe I hear, is you tend to make something or some process or something other than you responsible for change. It did this to me, and then it did that to me, and it isn't doing anything. It isn't doing anything. When I'm working with this Stroop effect thing, I find myself doing, and I boom, 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 and I am thinking differently about my relationship with my daughter.
I'll own that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, because it really empowers you.
Yeah. No, I like superpowers, so I'll take it all the way home.
You know?
Yep.
So, Rob, I want to thank you again, and maybe, and any of these other folks, because I don't know everybody in the room prior to today, Roger or Michael Landry or Kate spoke a little bit already. Cassie can speak. I didn't even know Cassie was here. For instance, if people ask me, what is hypnosis or what is trance? I usually say something like, I might start off saying, I have no idea what it is. Or I'll say that it's one of the most misunderstood terms in the English language. So I don't want to make any of this more important than it is, but when you notice when I pause, I want it to sink in. Go ahead. Someone wants to say something.
Hello?
Yes, Beverly.
I'm just curious what you think of people that are on the Myers-Briggs, introvert versus extrovert. I multi-handle questions with people, and some people can absolutely not handle it. And
some people cannot what?
Cannot handle doing multiple topics all at the same time. And other people have no problem and they love it. And it seems to me what you were doing with TiVo and the rest of the group have been bouncing back and forth, and it would interrupt them. Whereas somebody like me that likes to do multiple things at once, it might not interrupt me, or at least not as much as it would interrupt somebody else that is farther on the Myers-Briggs scale for doing incremental step by step by step, the ENTJ versus the INFP and all that.
Okay. Good, and thank you.
I think that's a soul thing. I'm just saying that it seems to me
let me enter in, Beverly, because it would be too much otherwise. So,
sure.
So first of all, I know the term Myers-Briggs, and I know nothing about it.
Oh.
And one of the reasons, for me, this could just be my excuse. One of the reasons, let's say, I never bothered to learn it. And I never bothered to learn it because for me personally, and this is just my opinion, it's not the truth, is it puts people in boxes and limits them and makes them less than who they really are, in my opinion. Okay, so one of the things that was happening with TiVo was he was talking at his own pace. So When I was clicking, I was interrupting him. And you could see sometimes, or in my opinion, because you couldn't see it, he really went on what in NLP is a complicated term, a derivational search. He was really going like, and he was looking over there, whatever. But he was speaking at his own pace. And if he's a person that does really well with interruptions, maybe he would have talked even faster. But he had the choice of what he was going to do, just like we all have a choice in our everyday life. And then I got confused with what you were saying. Are you saying that you could most likely do good with this Stroop effect because you're an X person, or what were you saying about that? I got lost.
Well, Myers-Briggs is really much more complicated than what you were.
Yeah, no problem.
But what I was saying is that I like bouncing from topic to topic and handling two topics at the same time. Whereas somebody who is much less like me, and I've had to work with people after I learned Myers-Briggs, I had to work with someone who absolutely could not skip a step. He had to go step by step by step, even though we knew what the outcome was. He still had to make every single step and couldn't leapfrog to a conclusion. And it's said that people like Winston Churchill were able to handle all of the traits of all of the types of Myers-Briggs. Even though he may have been initially one kind, he was able to handle all of them because he had to do what he did.
Okay.
So it's
So-
definitely, and
Go
it's
ahead,
on
please.
a spectrum. It's not a box. So, some people are more or less or whatever.
Okay. Thank you, truly. And Jonathan, if you don't mind, can you do a little further translation of what Beverly's been saying?
Well, I can take a stab at it. Of course, she may have a very different perspective than I do, and I welcome all that. And I'm here to learn, of course, too.
Yes, of
I
course.
was typing in the chat room that Myers-Briggs does have value. It has a lot of value, but the problem is that a lot of people will take that label that is produced from a single exam of Myers-Briggs, and they will carry that label with them as a self-identifying measurement of who they are as a person. When in fact, we change from context to context. I could be ENTP in this space. I could be INFJ in that space. Context changes our personality significantly, and the people that we are with in one situation versus another situation will change our behavior as well. So, not treating it as a box, but as a set of measurements. Charlie, even if you haven't studied Myers-Briggs, you've studied metaprograms, so you know a lot more about Myers-Briggs than a lot of people who've only studied Myers-Briggs and haven't studied metaprograms.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
in any case, to that point, what I believe Beverly was describing was a person who is so procedural that they have to go down a specific track in a specific order, and if you interrupt that, it can completely discombobulate them. There's a couple of things going on there. One is, of course, that they may be highly, highly procedural as opposed to options oriented and open to interruptions. The other aspect of that is there may be a very strong personal association with interruptions being evil and wrong, and it can send them through the roof with anger. All of that can be completely undermined, all the anger response, by starting with a pre-talk that's really elegant, something that says, "Hey, I respect you and don't want to interrupt you. The work that we're about to do is going to require me to interrupt you with some frequency. And I hope that you'll give me permission to do that for your benefit. Would you be willing in this context to permit me to interrupt you?" And if you say it like that and they give you a yes response, now you can interrupt them with full autonomy. If there's a pre-existing understanding that this particular intervention is about to make it impossible for you to get upset by that trigger anymore. So there are circumstances and there are pre-talks that you can do to set people up for this. It's wonderful.
Okay, so then what I heard as an important lesson for me, I think, and I'm asking, I think what you just said, Charlie, if you formatted the beginning of this differently, it might, a wider range of people might more easily do the exercise with you. Is that what you were saying, partially?
And I'm going to add one more thing, and this is strictly my interpretation, so I could be wrong, is Beverly's also about people who do have to follow a very straight procedure, or people who have lots of options who may be easily able to read the chart and it would not interrupt them in the same way. In which case, I would imagine that Charlie would just hit the clicker more, add another little step to the point where they had to go into some level of confusion to break the state they're in. So.
Okay, good, Joel. So, Jonathan.
And just to let you know, you've got 7 minutes officially on the clock.
Yeah, okay, we don't have to end exactly, but Jonathan, so what you're suggesting, if I set it up, the exercise a little differently, it might be easier for a wider range of people to engage in it?
Without question, that is absolutely true.
Okay, good. Because I didn't have that in my mind. Thank you for that.
And also, Myers-Briggs is a collection of only 4 metaprograms, only 4. So your knowledge of metaprograms puts you way ahead of Myers-Briggs.
Okay, well, ahead or behind there's no problem. So anyway, thank you for that, Beverly. So we're learning through you and Jonathan as well. And that's one of the great things about being in classes like this, not necessarily being the teacher or not, is we get to learn from other people, because I'm inviting, I think pretty much any good class will be inviting people to share their opinions with other people in the class. So, and Beverly, where are you living?
Northern Virginia, outside of DC.
Okay. Good. Okay. So I'm back after a long time, back after my cancer treatment and everything. And yes, I'm doing a little bit of this also. And just to mention this, because it's in my heart at the moment, is as a number of you have heard me say more than once, in the early years of my life, there was a lot of violence in my life. My father was a violent alcoholic, and then a whole long story of how I wound up in jail for 5.5 months in Greece during a military dictatorship, even though I was never even charged with anything. So I had a lot of violence by the time I was like 23 years old. And I remember about 20 years ago, a female friend of mine that I was quite close to and was working with, when out of nowhere she said to me, Charlie, for a guy that's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm really impressed with how well you do. And I looked at her and said, huh? And then, of course, I took some time to think, and she was right. And then what I want to say about my cancer treatment is, depending on exactly what kind of cancer people have and everything, but for the most part, in my understanding, the cancer treatment that you have to go through is inhumane. It was far and away the most challenging thing I ever did in my life. For instance, I wasn't able to eat for 4 months. Just imagine you didn't have one bit of solid food in 4 months. I had a tube in my stomach, and my girlfriend would put this like pablum in through the tube. I didn't feel hungry before she started, and I didn't feel full after she stopped. And the chemotherapy was horrendous. I got horrendously sick, and the radiation was oof, you know, like losing part of my beard and so forth and so on. So one of the reasons I'm only starting to teach back now is when I overcame the cancer and my treatment was finished, I went into a pretty serious depression. And apparently that's fairly common for people that have recovered from cancer. And there was a gentleman today that I don't think he's here, but speak up if you are here. There's another cancer survivor who was meaning to come to the class today. And anyway, what I can tell you is, for me, this is just not the truth, it's just my opinion or my understanding. The cancer treatment was another traumatic experience that on some level was layered on top of all of these traumatic experiences I had 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I've been digging myself out from under the traumatic experience of the cancer treatment. But I'm here, and I'm very thankful for everyone that's here. Joel helped me a lot in these last few days. Jonathan, very happy to see your face again. Tivo, nice to reconnect. Beverly, I think we're meeting for the first time, Beverly?
No, I sat next to you on a porch in Herndon or Sterling, somewhere around there.
How many years ago was that? How many years ago?
20?
How many years ago was that?
20 or 25? I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay.
I had just stopped chronic Lyme treatment.
Okay. Okay. And so, Dennis Lawson, Roger, Michael Landry. This is a Seishindo class. Every class will be different. I hope that you'll come away feeling that I treat everyone in the class respectfully, and that I believe, I used to erroneously think that I was the smartest guy in the room. And it took me a long time to realize that that absolutely just wasn't the case. And particularly when I've got people like Tony Padgett, Rob Schwartz, you know, and Jonathan and such, I really like having other very knowledgeable people in the room here with me, because they'll add to how the class goes on. So this has been today's class. Wow, as it turns out, it's exactly meant to be the ending time right now. I'll be having another class in 2 weeks' time. And I would really, really, really appreciate it if you enjoyed yourself, if you thought it was good, that you put out some word amongst your social network, and so we can make sure we have enough people for the next class as well. Okay? Thank you to everyone. Blessings. And feel free to send me an email or whatever like that. God bless.
Charlie, it is so good to see you back in the saddle.
Okay,
So
thank
good.
you. Good. Because I've always been terrible at horse riding, by the way, so that's a good metaphor. I was always going down when the horse was coming up. So,
nice to see everybody else here too.
Okay.
And
meet
for
the
anyone
folks I
who
haven't met yet.
doesn't know, it's charlie@seishindo.org. I'm putting it in the chat.
And we've recorded this class. We have to do a little bit to clean up the beginning of the recording when Joel and I were just talking about how to do X and Y with the system and stuff. And so eventually I'll be putting this recording out on my Seishindo channel on YouTube, which has a lot of good information. It's a bit esoteric, some of it, but a lot of good information. And I hope to be sharing a lot of good information with you in the coming months. So thank you very much for attending.
Charlie,
Thank
and
you for
probably
hosting.
my daughter sends you a thank you from the future. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, good. How old is your daughter?
17.
Okay, so she's old enough to, okay, she's not 2 years old. So yeah. Okay, great.
Thank you,
Charlie,
Charlie.
I gotta ask, your t-shirt's driving me nuts.
You know,
What?
I happen to like this T-shirt a lot.
Amen. Amen.
And good, Rob just showed up. And I wasn't going to wear this T-shirt today because of Rob. Rob has told me, like, Charlie, what the hell are you doing? But, and thank you for mentioning, Jonathan. This is one of my favorite T-shirts in the world. And I wish I had only had a T-shirt like this back in the Woodstock days.
For sure. Yeah.
And, you know,
I
supposedly
know
I
what
was
I'm
just
getting for
reading this again
Christmas.
the other day. I read it a long time ago. Is that Carlos Santana was actually tripping when he performed at Woodstock because who was it? One of the Grateful Dead gave him a tab of acid, and he thought he wasn't going to go on for like 10 hours or something on to perform, but he got asked to perform much sooner, and he was tripping the whole time. I
I
am
don't
not
think he was the
tripping.
only one, though.
Yeah, and I'm not tripping today, or I haven't tripped in a long time. And thank you, Rob. Next time I have a couple of other shirts that are
Also
artistic.
favorites of mine.
Yes. Okay, my friends. God bless all of us. God is blessing all of us. Bye bye.